Hi, I'm Collette Watson, and I'm director of Black in the Newsroom. Black in the Newsroom is about a journalist named Elizabeth Montgomery and her struggles in the media industry, particularly in a major newsroom right here in Arizona, and how her struggles really exemplify the larger issue of racism in the media industry and how that impacts our communities. So in 2020, Media 2070 was founded, the Media 2070 Project. And we debuted with an essay, a 100-page essay outlining a history of what we call media harm. And it's basically all the ways that the media system, so that's everything from film to journalism, entertainment, music industry, book publishing, social media, big tech, how these are all interconnected as a system that was created to uphold white supremacy in our society. The earliest newspapers in colonial America stayed afloat using the revenues from ads they sold for enslaved people. And most of those ads ended with a line that said, "Inquire of the publisher." So those publishers actually acted as brokers in those transactions, those human trafficking transactions. So it's a very direct line of how media, mass media in this country was built with the understanding that it would perpetuate a myth that Black folks are inferior as a profit model and as a business model. So, we wrote this essay, and in it we have all these examples from throughout history. Black reporters that were, attacked or killed, Black newspapers severely underfunded compared to their white-led counterparts. When I say underfunded, that's public investment as well as philanthropic investment. And then, of course, the dominant media system and the stereotypes and myths that it posts, the skewing of data, things like that, all just kind of reaffirming a worldview of Black inferiority. And it was definitely an essay that was well received, got a lot of recognition in the journalism industry. But when I saw Elizabeth posting online, for anyone to be able to see about what she herself personally experienced as a Black woman journalist mid-career in a newsroom, being paid thousands, 20,000 less than a counterpart who happened to be white with about 10 years less experience. When I saw this exodus of journalists of color out of the same newsroom, many of them with similar stories, when we saw the News Guild, which is the union for journalists, doing a study of Gannett-owned newsrooms and finding that on average, journalists of color were being paid on average $16,000 less than their white counterparts, we understood that Elizabeth's story in this Gannett newsroom really typified a very large dynamic that has been going on for decades and decades, for generations in our country. And being able to see and hear Elizabeth on that screen and being able to hear her story gives you the opportunity for this dynamic, this systemic issue to be brought to life in a way that you can understand. So my journey, though, individually as an advocate, stemmed from I saw the impact Elizabeth's reporting was having on the community I live in. I saw when she wrote about Grassroots Bookstore being the only Black-owned bookstore in Arizona. During the pandemic, she wrote about them, and instead of closing their doors, their business quadrupled. And I know the people at that store. I go there. I've bought things there. And so, I saw that firsthand. I learned so much about my community from the stories that she was sharing. I saw friends whose businesses, like Grassroots, were able to continue or just to exist, because of Elizabeth's reporting. And whenever I think about Black liberation, I think of it materially and spiritually, but I start with material because it's hard to thrive when you can't eat. And so what I understood was that Elizabeth's reporting was really empowering Black folks in this community in a way that they would not have without her presence because she was seeking out undertold stories, and that she herself was being underpaid and exploited and finding it nearly impossible to survive in that process. So what you had with her with her story and her honesty was really a chance for people, and we've seen this with the process of going to festivals and screening the film, a chance for people to value and care for Black journalists in particular. We are in a country, you know, we talk a lot about democratic ideals, but we've only been a democracy since the Voting Rights Act of 1965. This is a young democratic experiment. And we understand that journalism, you know, First Amendment rights, freedom of press, freedom of speech, these are fundamental to democracy. So we have to then understand that Black journalism, you know, Black press is one of the truest expressions of democracy. And that's a quote that I got from Dion Osborne at the Black Wall Street Times in Tulsa, where we know the Tulsa massacre happened, Black newspapers were burnt down, and that's a large part of why we didn't know that story. What are the stories that we don't know in Phoenix and in Denver and in Tuscaloosa and in just so many places across this country, because Black press has either been, you know, underinvested in or outright silenced. And that's what I'm watching people get to the chance to understand and become passionate about as we take this film on the road.